Hello, tiny friends, and welcome back to TinyKeyHoleMinis. I'm Jolene, and today is part 3 of creating the little old lady doll that lives in the Josephine house. Today I'll be creating her legs and her feet. And I really apologize for the long delay in between the videos. My family has had a huge loss. We have lost our Grammy, and we are going through a lot and a lot of changes to come. So I've been dealing with all that outside of the mini life. I do hope to come back soon to create her head and finish her off, but I promise I will not do that without y'all. Um, I want to thank everybody for being here with me today, and I want to thank you all for subscribing to my channel. It means so much to me. I really appreciate it, and I'm so thankful that you all have decided to come along on this journey with me. Just please bear with me and have some patience. Um, I know that we'll get through this. We are strong, and I will let go and let God, as some would say. But I am starting off with the lower leg, and I'm just showing you this part now because you'll be seeing these pieces while I'm creating the feet. But I just wanted to show you how I got to the basic shape of the lower leg, and I'm just rolling the clay out to create a larger cylinder on one end and a smaller cylinder on the other. And even this basic shape took a few attempts because I'm trying to get them to be the same size. And then I'll form a little bit of a calf shape in the back of the legs, and I'm going to set these aside, move on to the feet, and I'll come back to these later on in the video to finish them off. But just to give you a quick view at how I got to this basic shape and what I've done. So moving on to the feet. Okay, so I have completed one foot, and this is just the basic shape, but even with the basic shape of the feet, there is more added detail that needs to be on the basic shape than the hands had. So this is what it looks like, and I'm going to show you how I got there. Basically, I had to go back to the drawing board when it came to the feet. It didn't take as many tries as the hands because I actually had a really good direction to go in this go round. But I just used the same step that I did with the hands. So I created 5 little carrot shapes, and with these ones they're a lot longer because I need that extra clay for the back of the foot and to begin to build upwards to the top of the foot where the foot actually starts to transition into the leg. So right now I'm just ranking the sizes, and I'm going to line them up together just like I did with the fingers. And it was a little bit more as far as the detailing and having to check all the areas. The foot has more areas that need to be looked at than the hands did. So comparing the 2 feet, I had to look at several different angles and parts of the foot to make sure that they were coherent with each other, more so than the hands had. For the hands, it was more of the detailing and the aging that brought those out, whereas the foot has a lot of detailing in the basic shape itself before I add all the aging to it. So just to line these up, I began pushing them together and kind of like squeezing them upward a little. And then I took the end of that clay and folded it over on top of each other, or on top of itself, so that I have a lot more clay on the back of the foot, on the heel end to work with. And I am just going to focus on keeping these toes separated because I don't want them to stick to each other at this point while I am actually creating the foot. Once I get that step, it's going to be the same step as the hands. I'm going to take a little piece and I'm going to flatten it out, not as thin as the aging pieces that I use. So this is a little bit thicker because I am still building the foot. So I'm going to take this piece and just lay it right on top, right along where the toes would actually connect to the base of the foot. Just wrap that around, and I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom. I'm going to put a little piece along the bottom to give myself some more thickness to work with. So I'm just going to line it up. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be a nice little piece that will cover that area that I am building. And I'm lining them up right around the same area that I did the first piece. Okay, so this is where I'm going to take that extra clay and just fold it over right on top of each other, and this will help create that top part of the foot where I'm going to insert the magnet, and it's actually technically the bottom part of the leg. Now I'm using the same two tools that I used for the hands to create the basic shape of the foot. So I'm using this silicone end, and I'm using another tool that you'll see, but if you watched how I made the hands, it's the same two tools. So I'm just going to start to blend that piece in and smooth it down so that you don't see that transition line. So I'm just pushing the clay around and beginning to form the foot, pushing that clay into place, and I'll just add more clay as I move along and build this foot upward with the same steps. Little pieces, flatten them out, a little thicker than I would normally use for the aging, and just laying it where I need it to be. And then repeating the steps, smoothing down the transition lines and continuing to push the clay around and form the foot shape. I know the toes look a little long right now, but they're not going to. It's always good to have them a little longer because when you're working, they tend to shorten up on you as you're moving the clay and pushing it around into place. So those toes will end up shrinking during the making of this foot. But I'm going in between the toes just to smooth down the clay that I've added. Um, and this is what I'm doing to get to that basic shape. So you can see here, I'm smoothing it down, blending those lines in, and I'm going to skip forward just a little bit. Okay, so this is what it's looking like so far, and I'm going to be comparing it to this foot that I've already completed the whole way because like I said earlier, there's a lot more angles on the foot than there is on the hand, and so there's a lot more areas to look at and compare with the other foot, or to compare to the other foot. Um, so this is the other tool that I'm going to be using, and these are the little magnets. They're micro magnets that I purchased, I believe, off of eBay, and you can get them several different places online. But this pack, I believe, came with 20 magnets. And the funny thing about magnets is you have to have them on the right side according to one another, or they repel instead of connect. And I did not know that until I was working with these little magnets, and one of the feet weren't sticking properly. It was like repelling. I'm like, why is it doing that? But this is the strip that it came in, and you get about 20 of them in this pack. Yeah, I'm just counting them. Yeah, there's 20. Um, so I was like, what is going on? How come my magnets aren't working? And when I stuck the foot on the other leg, it actually worked. And I'm like, why is it working on one and not the other? And I'm thinking the magnet was bad, but I just had to flip it over. So that's, yeah, a good thing to note and be aware of. So this is what the foot is beginning to look like in comparison. And I just wanted to give you a good view of that. And then I'm going to move on. So, you know, I have to flip them over. I have to look at both of the sides. I have to look at the bottoms. I have to look at the tops. I have to make sure that they're the same length. They don't necessarily have to look identical, because we all know that with our body parts, uh, the corresponding parts aren't really symmetrical with each other. So they really don't have to look identical. They just have to be the same size and length and thickness. I can't have one foot being thinner than the other or shorter than the other. So that is what I am focusing on while I'm comparing, and just trying to get them to look similar to each other. The aging on them will look different. And I keep dropping this one foot, but it's hard enough. It's been sitting long enough. It's still raw. I haven't baked them yet, but I'm just showing different areas of the foot. So I need to build a little more on the connected area right in the middle. It's right where I'm working now. I just have to build a little more there, create a little more of a crease just to match it just a little more with the other foot. Like I said, I'm not going for a perfect match, just going for a similarity and size. Now I'm working on the pads of the bottom of the feet, and I have to tell you, it is really hard to keep the clay clean. So the feet, the bottoms of the feet got naturally dirty, and I just enhanced that. I left that and enhanced it, and I will show you later on what they look like. But now I'm starting just to create the toe bones on the top of the foot. So I'm using my silicone tool just to define that a little bit more. And I've been going back and forth with both feet. So just like I did with the hands, I went back and forth. When it came to just working on these little feet, I took a lot of breaks. I took more than I did with the hands because of everything I was going through, but it was very hard to stay focused on this part of the doll, and I really wanted to get it done, and I really wanted to share this all with you before getting to a stopping point, which would be before creating her head. Okay, so I have baked them, and I baked them with the magnets in them just in case there was any shrinkage in the clay, the magnets would still fit. I just wanted to be on the safe side. I wasn't really sure. And comparing them, I can see that one foot is a little flatter. This foot here has a little bit more of a dip on the outer side. So I am just, you can see here how it has just a little bit more of a dip, and that's probably fine, but for me, I know it's there, so I'm just going to take one of my needle files and just create a little more of a dip in that space on the flatter foot. You're really not going to see her feet. Either her legs will be in the basin soaking and I'll be able to remove her feet, or when her feet are attached, they'll have a pair of house slippers on, and um, so you really won't be able to see them. You know, if I decide to leave her barefoot, you know, here or there, whatever the case may be, um, I want to have just a little bit of detail just for that purpose alone. But other than that, you probably really aren't going to see her feet too much. I probably put a lot more uh, added stress on trying to create the details of the foot um, than I really needed. But again, I wasn't really fully 100% focused on this, so uh, it was a little bit of a struggle when it came to the focus part, and then, you know, not being able to think straight on what I need to do or what I wanted to do. So, as far as that part of this process, it was a little difficult. But now I'm going to go in and add a little bit of the aging, some veins and aging, and I'm creating that very, very thin, micro thin skin again, where I have to peel it off with this little blade here. And you can see how thin it is, almost transparent. And I'm going to take some liquid polymer and just put a little bit down, and I'm going to spread it out with my finger and then apply that thin piece of skin right on top. And once I get it on there, before I actually start creating the detail, I'm going to make sure that it's nice and smooth and it's attached really well. And I'm going to take my silicone tool and actually blend it down and try and smooth those transition lines. And here's the thing that I learned while doing this. I kind of had to make my own judgment when it came to if the piece was blended or not. Um, they're slightly different colors, and the liquid Sculpey gives the raw clay a little bit of a whiter shade, but it was still hard to tell in some areas, and I wasn't really sure if it was blended or not. I just had to use my own judgment, and fortunately, when I baked them and they came out, you couldn't tell, you couldn't see the transition line. The liquid Sculpey does help soften the edges and help it give it a bit of a, it makes it a bit more easier to blend down. But it worked out, and this is what it's looking like. I'm going to clear into focus, and what I'm going to do next is create some creases and like some wrinkles right around the top part of the foot where the leg actually grows into the foot. The foot is flexible and that's where it usually bends. So over the years, you know, I would think that that's where the wrinkles would, you know, grow. And I'm going to place some right here, just a few, and I'm going to show you a little bit of what I do as far as the aging on the foot. And the good thing is if you don't like the way it looks, you can just smooth it down, pat it down, and start over. So, no worries, right? I've had to do that a few times. Um, but again, no worries. I'm going to show you what it looks like and show you a little bit of what I've done. Now, this is the first foot I worked on, and I still need to smooth those areas in between the veins. So this isn't really completely finished yet, but just showing you that I go in here with this tip and just kind of smooth down the in-between areas. And I'm going to give you a look at how I begin with my other foot, and then I'm going to fast forward and bring them back when they're baked. Okay, so taking my silicone tool, I just go in between where the toes are, where the toe bones would be, and just start making indents by pushing down with a little bit of pressure. And all I am doing is pushing the clay over to create a little vein. And then I just smooth that out and smooth it down. And if I don't like it, I just start it over. But that's basically how I create the veins. You can see I'm starting over. It's that easy. Not easy to get what you want, but easy to start over. So you can see where the toe bones are and those impressions there. And I just start moving the clay around to where I like it, to how I like it to look. And once I'm happy with it, I move forward from there. So you don't necessarily have to add more clay. You just take what you have and push it around, and that creates the little veins. And you can see I'm pushing in the clay, making little indents, and then I'm creating these creases by pushing it, just pushing it around. And it starts looking like little veins. I'm going to continue to work on this, but I'm going to jump forward to create the ankle. So here you can see I'm just smoothing down around the veins and just giving you a good look at what I'm doing and what it looks like. Now for the ankle, I'm just taking a tiny little teardrop piece, and I'm going to apply a little bit of the liquid Sculpey right on the outside of the foot, a little up higher where the leg actually meets the base. Blend it down a little and stick that piece down and begin to shape it. And I noticed through images that the ankle has kind of almost like a triangular shape. So I'm just going to try to create that. They were a bit difficult to create, believe it or not, these little tiny ankles, trying to get them to look right because they weren't looking natural. So I had to reference photos, and it took a few tries on this to try and get them to look somewhat like a natural ankle. So some good blending went on here and forming and shaping. But I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to come back when these little feet have their final bake. Okay, so I realized I did not give you a good look at the baked feet, but we'll get to see those a little later. I'm going to work on the legs, and right now I'm just measuring them to the feet to make sure that they're good size in comparison to each other. And what I want to try to do is make them look older and create some dents in them. I'm just going to roll this tool around and try to make them look like old lady legs. This was a bit difficult. It took a few tries to get this right. I'm also going to be creating the calves on the back, so I'm going to be working on that as well. And I'm just trying to shape them out a little bit, but I kept losing the dents because they're so lightly pressed in that even the slightest touch of rolling in my fingers would shift it around or lose it on me. So it took a few good tries. And you can see what it kind of looks like a little bit here. It almost looks like it has cellulite on it, but Once I get these shaped to where I'm happy with them, I'm actually gonna push them onto the wire armature itself to create the hole that runs through it. These did take a little bit of time to create. You would think they would be the easiest part because they're just, a kind of like a solid section with not a lot of shaping to it. But um, these little parts also took some time. And once I get these baked, I'm gonna try and create some varicose veins. So we'll see how that works out. So I'm gonna fast forward, I'm gonna bake them and fast forward to that part. Okay, so this is what they look like. And I kind of wish they had a little more indents in them. But like I said, I kept losing them. But it's almost really hard to tell where the calf is. So I'm going to have to pay close attention to that. So now I am going to go in and try to create those veins. For this, I am just using really tiny micro snakes because I don't really need to add additional skin. So once I place, and I am using the liquid Sculpey first, I'll place the liquid Sculpey down, pat it down with my finger, and then just place this little tiny micro snake on it and push it around to form a vein. Now these are a little bit thicker than the veins because varicose veins can be a lot larger. And I'm just doing the same thing I do when I create the veins, and I'm patting these down and smoothing them down. I end up actually sanding a lot of them off in the end. I guess I just got carried away and put too many, and they looked like slugs on her legs. So I did sand a few of them off and sanded some of them down. In the end, in the overall end of creating these legs, I am not 100% happy with them. I could not get the shading down. The shading part of the feet and the legs were definitely a lost cause for me. And then I just told myself, you know what? I'm just going to leave it as is. When her feet are attached, and she has her house slippers, whether she has house slippers on or whether she's barefoot. No, I can't say that. Okay, so when her feet are attached and she has her house slippers on, she will have some knee-high stockings on as well. And um, you're really not going to see a lot of the leg. So I am not going to worry about it. I put, I think, a lot more added stress into this part of making her than I really needed to, on top of everything else that I had going on. Um, the the mornings and the evenings are really hard for us because that's when Grammy would get most of her needs, her tea and breakfast and her meds and her nighttime needs. And then the daytimes are pretty quiet because her TV isn't blasting because she couldn't hear. And there was a lot of yelling going on in my house because she couldn't hear. But it's very difficult for us right now. And we're preparing to downsize. So that's going to be coming up as well. So a lot going on. But when we do move into our new place and have a fresh new start, I will come back and we will pick up right where I'm leaving off with her and uh, continue on with my miniature makes, because after she's completed, I'm going back into that back room, tiny friends, to create that sewing room. So I'll be working on the sewing machine kit that I want to put together and show you with the antique wax. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that while I was creating these varicose veins. They're being removed in the end, so this is what, if you can see what they look like. Some of them looked really good and realistic, and then some of them just looked like slugs, so I got rid of them. So I'm going to now place the magnets in the feet and see how they work with the legs. Okay, so I am using Aleene's jewelry and metal glue to glue these little magnets in, and I'm trying to be very careful not to get the glue all over the top of the magnet. So I'm using a very, very little bit. And once I get these in, I'm going to see how they work with each other and actually show you what I mean by how they can repel. But I'm glad that I went with this decision of using the magnets. I think it's pretty cool that they can be removable and come off, and it's going to help when I fill in the basin tub, because I'm probably going to use resin to create the water in there, and with that I can somehow create two holes so that the legs just sit inside the holes and I don't have to worry about the shape of the foot. And that is the real reason why I made the feet removable. So it would be an easier construction, or easier way to create that realistic effect inside the basin and still have her removable, so that I can place her around the house as well. And I'll just probably do that for photo purposes, um, or just for fun. You know, sometimes I'll go in there and spend some time with her, and I'll probably just talk with her and place her around the house. When I come back for her head, we'll talk about her name. And the idea that I had, that has now changed, but we will talk about her name as I'm creating her head, which I'm going to need to be fully focused on. So it cannot be until we are moved and settled, and I am beginning with a fresh brain. So it's going to be a little while before I come back and do that. But again, I am not going to do that without you all, since you all have witnessed the whole make of her from beginning to this point. I will complete her with you all as well. But I'm super excited to have her here. So, okay, I've attached the one foot to the leg, and that works pretty well. And I'm going to show you what I mean by how the magnet can repel. So they look pretty good in comparison to size. The legs according to the foot. I think I actually switched out one of the magnets because it wasn't as strong as the other. Um, so this is the one that does not stick. It repels. It just won't stick. So you can see here how it just repels, but it'll stick right onto that one. Okay, so the legs and feet are working great according to each other. I think there was a point where I actually did have to switch them out because the legs will only fit to the corresponding side of the wire. So I can't take a leg off and put it on the other side. And at one point I had the feet backwards. So, but I want to show you what I used to rewrap the body. and I just wrapped over what I originally had. And originally I used a self-adhesive medical bandage wrap, so kind of like an ace bandage, but it was self-adhesive. And uh, the adhesive on it started to get gunky and gooey, and I knew it was not going to last a lifetime. So I have this package of cloths here, and they're actually disposable cleaning cloths or dry wipes. They're dry. I don't know where they came from. A friend of mine gave me a whole package of these, and they're soft and cottony, and they're almost see-through. They're pretty thin. So I just began cutting strips and wrapping the body parts over what was already there. And I used my Beacon fabric tack glue to attach the pieces, which was a very good glue to use with this type of fabric. So here you can see she's got a new wrap. It's more secure. I feel better with it. It's a little stiffer as far as the body wrap itself. And I just took a little bit of glue and added it onto the bottom of the thighs and then pressed them in so they kind of curved with the shape and they weren't sticking straight out. I'm liking this wrap a lot better, so I'll use it in the future when I make another doll. It was a really good material to use for a wrap. So she's got a new body wrap that I'm more happier with. And here are her legs and feet. I really love that I can position her feet and move them around to different angles. But I'm just going to give you a good look at what they look like. I did try to get some of that grayish purple tone to the top of the skin where your skin begins to thin out as we age, and you get some discoloring there, kind of like what I did with the hands. I didn't put any nails on the toes. I wanted to try and give them a more natural coloring for the nail bed, and I just couldn't get there. So I removed what I had. And I thought I might do a little more work on them in between now and the next time we come together. But I just decided I was going to leave them as is. You can see uh, they don't exactly match up with each other as far as the coloring, comparing the leg to the foot. But I am just going to leave them as is. I'm not going to do any more work on these pieces, and I'm going to move forward. But you can just pop off the feet, and I love that they are removable. You can see the magnet on the bottom of the leg. When I want to attach them, I just put them close enough and boop, they just pop right on. It's super fun. Boop. So, I had a lot of fun with that part. These little magnets are pretty cool. The legs are nice and tight. They're not going anywhere. I did take a few photos of her around the house. I want to show you her dirty feet. I did not forget that part. And again, it was so hard to keep the clay clean that I just went with it, and they look a little dirty and dusty, but she likes to walk around sometimes with bare feet, especially outside around her farm. Uh, so I just went with it. But I did create a short of the photos that I took of her around the house, if you didn't get to see that. Now with the chair, I had to sand down the legs. They were a little too tall and she couldn't reach the floor, but that was an easy fix. And now she, can reach the floor with her feet. And I'm just having some fun right here, just trying it out. Her legs stick right to the basin. But if you did not see that little photo montage I took of her, It is in my shorts playlist. She looks a little funny around the house without her head, but we'll get there. And she works very well with all the miniature pieces, so I'm really happy with her size. But I'm just having some fun with her feet and her legs, sticking them to this basin here. But I really hope you all have enjoyed this video today. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and click that like button. And don't forget to hit that notification button, that top bell notification button. If you are subscribing or if you have subscribed and you have not clicked that, to be notified every time I upload a new video and also when I return from this long break. But time goes by really quickly, so it will hopefully not feel like it's been too long. I want to thank everybody for subscribing, and please stay with me, tiny friends. When I come back, we will create the head and she will be complete. We'll give her some clothes and move up into that back room where I can start creating a sewing dressing room for her and work on that sewing machine kit from Chris and Bon that I want to show you with the antique wax that I'm going to use. But again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining my journey. And Grammy's last words were, "Don't you fall apart on me now." So we have been trying to honor those last words when we feel like we are falling apart. And every time we feel like that, we're going to remember what she said, and it just helps us to stay strong. But until next time, tiny friends, you all have a lovely day, and I will see you on the mini side. Bye-bye.